avoiding sex.
Barbara Corcoran, ladies and gentlemen.
You want the American dream. You want the life, the liberty, the happiness. But until you get there, until you achieve your goals and make your dreams come true, you know what you have. You have the journey, the hustle, the climb. I'm Kelsey Humphreys, and this is The Pursuit, where I interview the best of the best in person on their home turf about how they got started, how they got to where they are today, and what you can learn from them about success. Prepare to be inspired, equipped, motivated, encouraged, and have a lot of fun.
5, 4. Kelsey, are you ready?
I'm ready. Thank you for joining me for another episode of The Pursuit. This episode features my interview with Barbara Corcoran, which was just such a full circle moment because years ago, almost 2 full years now, I asked her to endorse my first book, Go Solo, which she did, and I could not believe it at the time. And then I stayed in touch with her and her team over time, and I pitched more than once to get the interview. If you subscribe to my email list, you probably heard all of the details on what it took to make this happen, but it was a dream come true for me. And I have to tell you that she is as awesome in person as she seems on screen. You expect her to be direct, but also really warm and, you know, funny and engaging. And she was all of those things. I mean, it was awesome. Barbara Corcoran is one of today's most successful entrepreneurs, especially female entrepreneurs, worth an estimated $40 million with multiple best-selling books and a starring role as a shark in the ABC hit series Shark Tank. After earning straight D's in high school and college, she tried her hand at over 20 positions by the time she hit 23. At that point, she met her first business partner who saw her potential in sales and loaned her $1,000 for a 51% stake in her real estate business. The partnership ended badly, and on her way out the door, he said she would never succeed without him, which was the push she needed to grow her small business into a $6 billion real estate empire. Now she's an international star, appreciated by viewers and aspiring entrepreneurs everywhere for her warm yet candid advice in the tank. Well, everyone knows you and loves you. We had so many people write in from social media, so I'm excited to get to their questions. But I like to start at the very beginning. So everyone's heard the line, you took a $1,000 loan and turned it into a $60+ million business. So tell us that story, how you got started at the very beginning.
Well, I had a very early and lucky break. I was a diner waitress, and a man walked in and sat at my counter, and he became my first boyfriend. And about 2 years after I met him, he said, "You'd be great at real estate with your personality. Why don't I give you $1,000 to start a real estate company?" He became my 51% partner, and I was his partner. And that's how the whole thing got started. It wasn't even my idea.
And then a few years later, you guys parted ways. Mm-hmm. And that's when you were out on your own, which I think is an interesting turning point because most new businesses fail, 8 out of 10 or whatever the statistic, in the first couple years. Yeah. And so when you went out on your own, I kind of think that was like do or die there. So what do you think were the keys to the success in those first few years on your own?
I think the most important thing that happened is I started my own business as a result of him marrying my secretary. So I was injured, as any woman would be, and I was the older woman at 30. But I had, again, the lucky break, yet again, right on time, of him giving me an insult as I went out the door. Because he said I'd never succeed without him. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, without any doubt in my mind, without that, I wouldn't have had the fervor to succeed in the way I did. I was out to prove him wrong, basically. Yeah. And I didn't care what I had to do, but I knew I was going to make a success of that business on my own.
And you've talked a lot about how a lot of successful entrepreneurs have something to prove and bounce back from failure, which is what you did. And you've talked about that a lot. Being a key component is to bounce back. And so let's talk about in the early years, some struggles you had. Heather wrote in, she wanted to know big challenges back in the beginning and how you bounced back from them.
I think the ability to bounce back takes experience. I've gotten really good at it over the years. I wasn't naturally good at bouncing back. No one is. Who likes an insult? Who likes to put your heart and soul into something only to find out it doesn't work out? who likes to feel foolish, even in their own mirror, about not succeeding at what you pushed hard for and worked so hard for? But I think as a result of experience, you quickly learn that every time you push through a failure, there is always some prize for you on the other side. And so all you have to really do, I feel, to get good at that is to keep doing it. And eventually you become a believer, as I do, because right now when something really knocks me off my feet, I immediately realize there is some opportunity right there that is right around that corner. And that's not stinking thinking or that you're making that up. It's the truth. If you get in the habit of seeing past something, there's always something there better.
Yeah.
And you're ready to take it on because you want to even the score in a way.
Yeah. Right.
And so experience, sadly, is the only way you learn how to get really good at getting back up.
Gotcha. And then obviously you went on to massive success, and part of that was, you built a huge staff of successful people, and you talk about how now on Shark Tank and back then it was about finding the right people. What's your advice on that?
Well, I think with people, the only thing you should be doing ever is hiring character, I should say, not a character. You want someone who is good through and through. And I've done that again and again in every business I've been in. And that has been the key to building a successful business. I could give you 100 examples, but I could give you, for example, my more recent chapter in life, Shark Tank, when I hired an inexperienced young man right out of college to manage all that business. He was probably the absolute wrong candidate against other people I was interviewing. But I hired him because of his character. And for example, one question I asked him is, what is the most important thing to you long term? A typical interviewing question. His answer was, to pay my parents back for my education.
Ooh.
You don't hear that much.
Right.
So I knew I had a great guy there. Now all I had to do is teach him how to do it. And he had the smarts to learn, and he's proven to be tremendously useful and helpful in that business. And so I think when you get distracted by resumes, which I don't like to read before the person comes before me, and get distracted by experience, which I don't put a lot of weight on, I really want just the raw material, the goodness there, and the willingness to learn, and the smarts to be able to learn. You have to have smarts,
Right.
of course. But those are the ingredients. The rest is just about learning technique. That's all it is. All businesses have techniques.
Right. And one of those is selling, which you're obviously a master at, and you hired masters of sales that went on to do incredible things. And so what about, entrepreneurs who feel like they're not good at selling or can't really master sales yet? What's your advice for them?
Sales is part of born with gift, I think. If you have an extremely introverted child, I don't care how much time you spend on it, you're not going to teach them how to sell. It's just not their nature. So I think you have to be cognizant of what your natural nature is, and if it's not in you to like to convince people of your way of thinking, I think it's a hard sell to sell somebody on that.
Yeah.
But you can always hire a partner who's great at selling. My partner, Esther Kaplan, would have never succeeded in business. She was the ultimate introvert, but her skill set was enormous and opposite to mine. And so together we were able to build a phenomenal business. Would I have built a phenomenal business without Esther? Absolutely not, because I didn't have her skill set.
Yeah.
And so I think you can hire your opposite, but I think rather than hiring them, if they're a partner, you've guaranteed your success because you cover all bases.
And when you had that huge business, so many people, you had 40 direct reports, and you talked
Actually
about...
had 22.
22.
Yes.
I don't know where I got that.
Somebody
Okay.
exaggerated. Probably me.
Okay, so you had 22 direct reports, and you said that it was your job, and now you do this with your entrepreneurs, to keep them motivated. And how do you do that? How do you keep other people on your staff motivated and inspired and doing great work?
I think you have to figure out, walk in their shoes and figure out what is most important. And I think to everyone, all of us, I think the most important thing is recognition, acknowledgement that you're doing a good job. And I think you have to acknowledge people and make sure they're in the job that they enjoy doing. Because people will struggle at a job for years and do a fairly good job, but unless they're not naturally inclined to do that kind of work, you're not going to get a happy person.
Right.
And so the happiness is in putting them in the right job in the first place and then acknowledging that they're doing a good job. Wish I could give you a more sophisticated answer.
That's a good answer, I think. Probably something a lot of people need to hear. And talking about whether you're naturally inclined towards something, one thing you talk about a lot in interviews is listening to your gut and hearing your intuition and just going for it. Is that something you always had, or do you think people can learn to get better at listening to their gut?
I think some people don't have it. What do you think about that? I think intuition is what you can pick up between the lines. It's the gray area of life, okay? Not the facts and the figures or the visual sense, but it's like what happens in your mind, what filter do you have in my mind that you have another voice interpreting for you? That's intuition, right? And so some people are naturally intuitive. Kids are, you could pick it up, and some people aren't. I think if you are naturally intuitive to some degree, you can get really good at it by paying attention. Also paying attention to when you're wrong and how you could have sized that up differently. But if you don't have a natural sense of people or interpretation of a situation, it's a rough one to learn, period. Yeah.
I love to hear you talk about your mom in business, and you said that her processes had processes, which I thought was interesting, and I'm sure you picked up some of that. What's your advice for so many entrepreneurs say they're a creative type and they're a visionary and they're not good at the processes part? What's your advice for them? Maybe hire an opposite again.
Well, I think if you're a lone worker, you have a business that provides a service and it's just you, you could be a pure creative and do very, very well at your work. I don't think you necessarily have to be organized and good at that side of the equation. However, the minute you want to hire someone and you want to build your business with other people, you better get organized.
Yeah.
And if you have a dozen people, for example, unless you're organized and can communicate a system and create them as you go, which is part of building a business, you'll never build a big business. It will fall apart. Because if you're a purely creative giving direction, you don't give good direction. You don't delegate well. You repeat things again and again without creating a process or an order to your business. But if you're orderly, you can build a big business. You can use as many people building your business as you wish, and everybody knows what they're doing simply because you're good at systems, which is what my mother had, which is something that I innately have. I think probably picked it up from watching her. And I can't express to you how key that is if you want to build a business that operates like a clock. Just it's really going to repeat itself again and again without a hitch. Organization is key.
Yeah, that's great advice. Now, before we move on to Shark Tank, a couple people wrote in asking about your transitions. Casey, he's a realtor, and he wanted to know how you went from realtor to then broker to then like one of the biggest brokers, in the country. And then Abby wanted to know, then you did all that and moved into television. So how did you keep transitioning over and over to success to success to success?
Well, it wasn't exactly that way,
Well, that's how it looks to
That
us.
sure sounds good, yeah. Because you know what? Everybody loves a winner, and everybody notes who's winning and how terrific it is, all right? But I can assure you, I've only known my own life, but anyone that has been hugely successful has as many bad stories between those nice bylines all along the way.
Right.
Tell a good story. I think what you have to do to succeed in different fields and to keep moving forward is to make an honest assessment of what your gifts are. And everybody's got gifts. But you have to think, what are my gifts? And then before you jump off and do something more with it, ask if that something more really uses those gifts. So for example, when I sold the Corcoran group, I knew I wanted to continue working and building another business because I love business. It's fun. It wasn't like I'm getting punished. It was my blast in life. So I had to sit down and yet again analyze what I'm good at. And what I'm good at is marketing, PR, public speaking, and motivating people. Those are my 4 big gifts. And organization, I would add to that. And so when I sat down to try to figure out what kinds of businesses would utilize that, I came up with a short list. An advertising agency, television work, or public relations agency. And then I analyzed which I might enjoy more, and I came up with TV. But the key, I think, when you transition is to take what you do well, even in your not only personality, which we just covered, but what is your knowledge base? What did I know better than anyone I knew, which was real estate? And so when I went into the TV world, I went into the TV world talking real estate.
Right.
And let me tell you, it takes a long time to get comfortable on television. But when you are talking about something you know it inside and out, you have such confidence walking in, because at least you got that side covered.
Right,
and then you just need the practice of sounding good on TV.
Right. And you do sound so good on Shark Tank. Everyone loves that show, loves you. Congratulations on the success. It's in season 7?
Yeah, season 7.
I mean,
Great
that
show,
is,
right?
it is so great. It is so
it
great.
great?
And I think it's kind of funny. I find that it's one where husbands and wives both like it.
Yeah, and
Have you-
kids. We have the largest kid audience in the industry.
How
And it's
interesting.
owned by Disney. Yeah, it's a family show. Everyone watches it with their kids. Usually the children bring in the parents. That's the MO on the show.
Huh, how interesting. Now, you have said that when you partner up with someone on Shark Tank, you ask yourself, what does this business want to be? I thought that was so interesting. So you kind of envision what their business really is supposed to be. Does that vision match the entrepreneurs? And if it doesn't, what do you do?
It usually doesn't match the entrepreneurs, or they would be doing it, all right? But that is nothing more than sales. So that's an easy one, because I'll take the entrepreneur once they become my partner, and sometimes even present it on TV, because I want to see if they're simply open-minded to a change. But once they're my partners, when that contract is done, I immediately sell them on my concept, because I mean it and I know I'm right. In other words, imagine this. And I tell them how rich they could be, because they're motivated by success.
Right.
How happy they would be, because my plan takes into account, of course, their gifts, or I wouldn't be pitching it.
Right.
And I really believe it. I can see it as clear as I could see it as though it exists. And when they listen to me, they buy it. The ability to see the big picture, as everybody calls it, which sounds so ridiculous, of course. But that is definitely a gift I got, because I'm dyslexic, with every one of my entrepreneurs who had a learning disability. They all have the same gift. It's naturally, they get it. They can see the field from afar. And that is a wonderful advantage I have that I use day in and day out. So Shark Tank is really well suited for me.
One thing that's interesting about Shark Tank, you said that the entrepreneurs suddenly have all this fame and publicity, and they're getting pitched for all these things, and they want to go do reality shows, and you said that you need to keep them to focus on building the business instead of going off and doing all those things. But I think a lot of people think, well, getting a reality TV show gig would be so great for my business. Why is that not the case for most of them?
Well, it's not that it's not the case, but everything has to be at the right time. What happens on Shark Tank is, when you're on Shark Tank, it's like having the fairy godmother whack you with a stick that's going to make you famous, and that's exactly what happens. You already have the notoriety, you have the credibility right after it airs, and you have a big head. And there lies the problem.
Right.
And so typically my entrepreneurs are getting so much attention. Everyone wants their product.
Right.
That the next thing they want to do is, let's do more TV. But here's what goes awry. They don't pay attention to the fact that it's momentary fame. That's all, just for a moment. It's not going to last. When everybody wants their product and says, do you have 5 more different versions? They are quick to produce it, thinking that that desire will be there always. It's not. It's only 3 months.
Gotcha.
And so you really have to squeeze their head in and get them to focus on building a business that's going to be ready to grow. And the last thing they need is to be whacked by another famous stick.
Right.
The Shark Tank takes them for the first year, and after that, they're ready to do some more famous type stuff. But that first year, you have to build your business. It's as simple as that.
First year. That's a great rule of thumb. So, of course, a lot of people want to know, Stephanie is one specifically who wrote in for your advice on how to get on the show.
Oh, that's an easy one.
Well, great.
You just go on ABC, click on Shark Tank, and make an application. That's first. What they don't ask you for, which is interesting, I don't know why, I've mentioned it a few times, is they don't ask you for a tape. But you're very smart to submit a tape, a quick 3-minute pitch in bright colors with great personality, looking as pretty and sexy as you possibly can, because after all, it's TV first and business second.
Right.
And get the tape in, because the amount of applications per day are thousands for Shark Tank. And frankly, you've got people who have to pick. and they're going to watch a tape and pick faster than call you, ask you for a tape, and then pick you. And so that's a smart thing. There's also auditions all over the United States, and where the auditions are up on the screen. But you better practice before you show up.
Okay. And Tova wrote in asking about if someone wanted to pitch to you directly to work with you. Is there a way to do that, and what do you look for?
If it's a technology business, they could certainly pitch me directly, not in person, because I have an angel fund where people, in essence, invest along with me in technology businesses.
Gotcha.
Okay? That's on Angel List. But I don't take pitches outside of Shark Tank.
Oh, okay.
Simply because I don't have the time to do it.
Right. I mean, you have so many businesses. It's crazy. So I want to read something that someone wrote in, because I think you'll appreciate it as we move into talking about some of your habits and being a woman in business. Michelle wrote in, I don't have any questions for her, but I would like her to know what a pioneer and inspiration she is to women attempting to breach male-dominant industries. And it's so true. I mean, so many people talk about, I mean, I know you have a lot of quotes online and social media images, and a lot of it is about being a woman in a male-dominated industry. How did you do it, and what is your advice for female entrepreneurs who have a family?
Well, remember, I built my business. I started when I was 23, and I built it for the next 20-some-odd years. I had my first child at 46. I had my first child when my business was already built, and it was a huge business. If I had been a mother, and I could, without any doubt in my mind, if I had been a mother raising a couple of kids, or even one, when I was building the Corcoran Group, I would have never succeeded.
Really?
I mean, I hate to say that, but the truth of the matter is once I had my first child, I had sibling rivalry play out in my heart every day of the week, because I wanted to be a great mom, and I wanted to be a great mom at work. And you can't be both at once. I think if I had had children early, what I would have done immediately is found another mom to be my business partner. Because I really think when you're divided between raising a family, if you want to do a great job, and raising a company and do a great job, it's almost impossible. I mean, the great advantage I had not having children early was I built a business just like a guy would. Yeah, because even men who are dads and have the concerns and loving dads, they typically still have their wife at home.
Right.
When they're building a business. And so I don't think there's enough credit given to moms on how hard they work.
Right.
Add to that, building a business from scratch, it's an enormous challenge. Probably a few ladies out there that could do it better than me, but I can tell you I wouldn't have been able to do that. I'm sure of it, because I was able to experience the contrast between the two.
And what about advice for women who are earning quite a bit more than their husbands? Did you have any friction at home, or any, was that an issue for you guys?
Does a cat have a tail? Come on. My advice would be to expect it. Marriage is all about communication and power, if you think about it. In other words, who's doing what, who's contributing what. So enter the woman who's making a ton of money. You have a lot of issues with men, and really confident, well-bodied men. And women on the other side have the same issues. All right. But speaking as a woman who had tremendous earning power over my husband, it's hard for the guy. I don't care how confident he is, because people are measured by what they bring in income, particularly men. All right. And so my cautionary word would be, think about that. Think about that.
Right.
Because it makes managing a marriage more difficult. I truly believe, and I know enough women in the similar position to myself, and we've shared those confidences. And it's a challenge.
Wow.
It's a challenge. I wish I could give you better advice. I'm not so sure I'm good at it.
Yeah, but the truth is what we want to hear. I mean, people who are aspiring to be where you are need to know the realities of that. And this kind of goes into that. Along the way, do you feel like you had to give things up, or what did you have to give up to reach this massive level of success?
Well, what you actually give up, what I gave up, was starting a family early. Okay, and then I didn't give that up anymore, and I incorporated that. But I think when you're working the hours you have to work to build a business with the fervor that you need in your heart and in your actions to build a business, what you really give up is quiet time.
Yeah.
Because even when you're in the shower, you're thinking of your to-do list, what you didn't get done that day. And what you also give up, and I don't think there's a solution to it, it's the way you're wired, you give up the sense that your job is done.
Yeah, amen
That
to
you've
that.
accomplished enough that you're satisfied with the fruits of your labor. I'm never satisfied.
Right.
I can tell you 5 things I need to do rather than what I just got done.
Exactly.
And that's the curse of being aggressive, okay, and being hungry and
Yeah.
being desirous of seeing how far you can go. But can I tell you, it's such a little price to pay, because what you get for being able to actually have the power and the experience of making your dream come true, just like you see in the movies, and with all the same detail.
Yep.
Is such a gift in life, and not one that a lot of people get to realize.
Becky wrote in and wanted to know if you had any regrets.
I'm not a regret person. You know what I mean? Because regrets keep you paused in the spot you're in, the puddle you're in. And a note on, if I could just rest for a minute, because it just came in my head, I have to get it out.
Right.
On getting stuck in the puddle you're in, which we all do in trying to accomplish anything in life. It doesn't even have to just be a business. Anything, you get caught in the puddle. But in business, I have a great technique that has really helped me, and I know it's helped other people, so I'll share it with you.
Yes,
while we're on
please.
the-
Yes, please.
When you're stuck in a situation and feeling the frustration and thinking like, oh my God, that discouragement factor, I have found the most effective thing you could do is to get a nice clean legal pad out, one of those big yellow numbers, the long ones, right? And put a line down the middle, and on the left-hand side, write what I love, and on the right-hand side, what I hate. And just stream of consciousness. Burp out everything you love and burp out everything you hate. And then get rid of what you hate. Because the minute you start delegating it or deciding you're just not going to do it, or you're going to find a way not to do it, it is the most powerful thing you can do to put wind under your sails to fly again. You feel the immediate benefit of that, and you feel wildly enthusiastic. And now the question is, why is that? Because no one likes doing the stuff they don't want to do.
Right.
Okay? Some of it's necessary, some of it you can tolerate, but generally discouragement is about being stuck on the stuff you're good at and you didn't do well, and you're forgetting about what you're doing well. And once you free yourself out of that stuff as best you can, little by little, boy, you just feel so lighthearted and enthusiastic all over again. It's like the fountain of youth for me. And I've returned to that simple methodology. It only takes a half day in a library or some quiet space without your cell phone. But let me tell you, it works for me every time, which must have been hundreds of times building any business I'm involved in. And I have all my entrepreneurs doing it as well.
So great. So great. How to Get Out of a Puddle by Barbara Corcoran. I love it. That's so
Or
great.
a rut. Puddle sounds like you can have fun. A rut isn't very
That's a good point. So you've talked a little bit about how much you had to hustle back then. Let's talk about today. Jessica and Whitney both wrote in wanting to know about your daily habits that you have, what an average day is like, or maybe an average week.
Well, the truth is, what I'm doing now varies in terms of what I do in the day. A little bit more glamour, a little bit more performance, a little bit more performing out front versus working like crazy in the back to push things forward. But truly, it's the same stuff. What am I doing today? I'm selling. What did I do when I started my business? I was selling, right? How hard was I working in the early days of my business? As long as it took to make it happen, which were endless hours. How hard am I working today, now that I don't really have to work ever? As hard as I was working when I started my business, endless hours to get done what I have to get done. And so if you're going to do well at anything, I think you just have to put the work in. I would love to know the shortcut.
Yeah. Well, one habit, or I guess daily thing you have to keep yourself focused, I thought was hilarious, is your tactic on your office wall. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, with my entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Well, to date, I've invested in roughly 30 some odd businesses over the years in Shark Tank, and they keep accumulating. The problem with that, there's only one me. So how do I give all 30 some odd children my attention as a good mom? I do not. What I do is I work with each business that I close on in Shark Tank, my new partners. I work with them short term, first month or two. And then I watch to see what happens. Within the first 3 months, an obstacle arises, a big obstacle. The guy didn't deliver, so they can't ship the merchandise. Somebody didn't pay, and it's going to put them out of business. Things go wrong. It's the nature of business. And then I watch how they handle it. The minute they're feeling sorry for themselves and casting blame on someone else, I take their photo, which I put right up on the wall. Every new business as it closes. Happy photo, picture of happiness in the future. And I hang it upside down. Now, why do I do that? Because my time is limited. And I need to be steady on who I'm going to put my time into, who's going to hit the finish line well and be satisfying, and who I'm going to waste my time with. And I have found the only reliable gauge over the years I've been working on Shark Tank, and also all the years I was hiring salespeople, the only reliable gauge is the winners take very little time to feel sorry for themselves. And they move on, independently of me and my advice. But the whiners, the feel sorry, oh poor me, look what they did to me, the victims, never make it.
Yeah.
And so why do I want to spend any time? I'm very nice. It's not like I abandon my kids, but they become like the in-laws I don't want to see except when I have to. Whereas my great kids, dousing with love, attention, whatever I can do for them. And that's where my time is. They're the 8 priorities of my life.
Awesome.
So I think it's a visual representation for me because I'm very visual of be careful. Be careful, they're calling, watch out, make it short.
You know what, I think that could be a great tactic people could use for anything that draws on their time. You know, just like if you had a social media stuff up on your wall or whatever, and just turn over the ones that aren't producing for you.
That's interesting.
That's a great
It might be expensive to get the mats and the frames. You might want to do it with Post-its.
Yes, Post-its would be great. There you go, everybody. And so I wanted to ask if you have any other, do you have any weird health habits or like daily rituals that you think have contributed to your success?
I had a great present from a girlfriend when I gave birth to my son when I was 47. And she gave me a personal trainer, 3 personal trainer sessions, $50 a piece. And I thought it was the worst gift in the world, right? But she said, you're going to have to get back in shape, which was true.
Yeah.
And I took the personal trainer, Tom, he was a sweetheart, and I never stopped. Okay. For me, I have tremendous willpower, but I don't have the willpower. It's not one of my things to get up in the morning and work out. I could give you 100 things I have to get done because it's true.
Yeah.
Okay? It's a total waste to spend that hour. But I have since then worked out religiously 3 mornings a week for just an hour. I'm in great shape. I can't even imagine me having the energy level I have if I wasn't working out.
Yeah.
Right? And so it doesn't have to be a personal trainer, but I think forced deadlines are great on the things you don't want to do. And for me, taking care of my health is something that I really let slide. I assume it's a given. But I've learned to be differently about it thanks to my friend Susan who gave me that gift. You know?
Awesome. So looking back over your whole journey, what's been the best part and the worst part?
Well, the best part, of course, is anything I dreamt about along the way. The little cartoon in my head of seeing who I was going to be when I was going to be somebody. And just seeing that little cartoon, every piece of it has come true. So I am a believer in visualization, but I wasn't willing to put the effort and the talent behind it to make it come true. And so just being able to actually be given a paintbrush and make your life as you want it, I mean, that's the best, right? That's been the best part. What comes with that is the worst part. But you can't have it all.
Right.
You can't always get what you want, as Mick Jagger says. And the worst part is your work, you're always on to the next or thinking you have to do the next thing, which is tremendous pressure, self-imposed pressure. So I live with tremendous self-imposed pressure because of the nature of my personality. But without that, I wouldn't have my dream come true.
Right.
And so that's the way it goes. You know, you get a little good, you get a little bad with everything, right?
I can relate to that. And if you were to give someone advice at the very beginning of their entrepreneurial journey, they're just starting out, maybe they just quit their job for their business or something like that, what's your number one piece of advice for them?
It's to avoid what 95% of everybody does wrong, which is one silly little step, but it shouldn't be overlooked. All right. When you have your vision of your business and you're either a product or a service, basically it's one or the other, you're wildly enthusiastic. It's like a hot date. She's perfect. Until you get into it and get married, right?
Yeah.
So I think the important step that everyone skips is they'll ask their family and friends, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? They love you. They like you or love you. You should be asking your mother-in-law who hates your guts, right? What do you think of this, all right? But more importantly than that, you should ask somebody to pay for it. Write me a check. Would you give me $30? See what happens. Because the saddest thing for me is to watch very talented entrepreneurs who should be entrepreneurs pedaling or working on the wrong wheel. Okay, and they think it's them, and they're pushing and pushing and pushing for years when they should really let that dog die, as Kevin would say, or whatever his million great lines are that he does on that, and move on to something else. So a lot of people leave dejected as entrepreneurs, thinking they weren't an entrepreneur. But no, they just bet on the wrong horse. Oh. So I think that little extra step, adding the money piece, pay me for it, really separates the good products from the bad products, all right?
Yeah.
And yet people don't bother to do it because they're too much in love, and love is blind.
Awesome. Great advice. Well, thank you so much again for your time. We will be right back after this with Fast Facts. Obviously, there's not that many people better equipped to teach us about success and entrepreneurship than Barbara Corcoran, but here are my top 7 keys to success from my interview with her. Number 1, bounce back again and again. Not only when you get rejected in life, or you have a failure, or one of your businesses fails, or an idea fails, she says every time there's a failure, there's usually an opportunity right after that. You just have to keep on going and don't give up after you face a setback. Number 2, listen to your gut. She says that multiple decisions in her life have been made because they didn't feel right. She is very in tune with her intuition. And though she's not sure if that's something that can be learned, I believe it's probably something that can be learned if you practice what she said, which is paying attention to your surroundings and how you feel about things. I believe we can learn to get better at that. She's not sure, but she does say it's worth the effort because she credits that to a lot of her success. Number 3, as a lot of my guests say, use your strengths. Part of the key to her massive success was that she partnered with someone who has opposite strengths than her, so she didn't focus on her weaknesses at all. She bet on her strengths again and again, which is also how she transitioned from one success to another and eventually into television success as well. Number 4, create systems. If you want to have a business, if you want to grow. A lot of people want to be solo entrepreneurs. They want to go it on their own. Maybe they're creative, you're a photographer or a graphic designer, and you want to just do freelance work on your own. She says you can succeed. But the second you want to outsource or start hiring part-time help and eventually full-time help, you're going to have systems and organization in place in order to bring people on board to grow. Number 5, love the work. As with all my guests, she said, again, you have to put in the hours. You simply have to work what she called endless hours to make things happen for your business, especially if you want the level of success that she has had, which means you're going to need to love what you're doing in order to sustain it and really find a massive level of success. I want to note here for all of the women watching that she did say flat out, part of loving the work is choosing to wait 20 years to start a family. And that may be discouraging to you, but I want to remind you what I talked about in the Gary Vaynerchuk episode, which is that the effort needs to match the goal. If you want to have a business that eventually sells for billions of dollars, yeah, you probably aren't going to be able to do that and have a family at the same time. But if your goals for your business are much smaller, the chances of you being able to balance that and starting and growing a family are much more doable. So remember, the effort needs to match the goal. And if you want to build a giant business, you may need to take her advice, reevaluate, find a partner. But she says she doesn't believe she could have done what she did if she had kids while she was building her business. Number 6, love people. She genuinely cares about other people. She's interested, and that's part of why she's had such success. But another thing about it that I thought was interesting, and you can pick up on it if you watch a lot of the show, is that she really loves her entrepreneurs and she really loves her employees and her business partners. She calls them her kids. She calls herself office mom. She is someone who loves her people, which I think is a key to her success. Lastly, stay grateful. She looks for people who are grounded, who are humble, who have integrity, and those are all qualities that she possesses. And when you hear her talk about her work, yes, there were some things she had to give up along the way. Yes, she had failures and setbacks and things that were not great throughout building her business, but you won't hear her talk about that because she's so grateful to have the life that she's had and the businesses that she's had. I hope this encouraged you and inspired you and motivated you today. If it did, I hope you'll consider giving Barbara a shout out on Facebook or Twitter, thanking her for doing this interview. And if you're a longtime watcher of the show, I hope you realized that the show is now available in audio form on iTunes and Stitcher as a podcast. So you can go back and listen, or you could take episodes on the go with you. And I hope you'll consider going over to iTunes to leave a review. If you love this episode, you can find more at thepursuit.tv/Barbara Corcoran, and you'll really love my once a week emails, which you can find at thepursuit.tv or kelseyhumphreys.com.
Okay, so we are back here with Barbara Corcoran. We are going to do fast facts. Are you ready?
I'm
Just
ready.
answer as quickly as you can. Try and answer without thinking. Okay, what is the wallpaper on your phone?
Oh, my kids.
What is the last thing you Googled?
Last night, floors for my new apartment.
Nice. Scrabble or charades?
Oh, I'm a great Scrabble player.
Scrabble.
My
I'd love to
husband
play
hasn't won
games.
in years.
Really? Neither has mine. That's awesome. Most recent book you read?
Sister Carrie.
Okay.
Fabulous book.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
One word
Who
you...
would pick vanilla?
A lot of people pick vanilla.
Really?
It's very surprising.
Yeah.
I would have to say it depends on the context, but no one ever says that.
Well, you didn't say that was a rule.
Okay, depending on, no, I'm kidding. As a rule, you basically would go for chocolate. One word you're guilty of saying too often.
Should.
Should. Probably me too. Who is the last person that called or texted you?
Tommy, my son this morning, asking for something.
What is the last...
As usual.
Kids. What is the last awkward situation you were in?
Yesterday, when I was having a big filming in my home, and I had given the whole crew permission not to take off their shoes, and then I realized I ruined my carpet. And I was thinking, should I just tell them? And then I realized it was too late. Just shut up and let them ruin the carpet.
Oh, how sad for your carpet.
It wasn't so bad. Life could be worse. They didn't roll the machinery over my feet, right?
Yeah,
Break
true.
my toe.
Right, could be worse. Last vacation you took?
Skiing, Utah.
Hobby?
Bike riding, Scrabble, and avoiding sex.
Barbara Corcoran, ladies and gentlemen. Coffee or tea?
Always coffee.
Early bird or night owl?
Oh, dead at night, early bird.
Me too. Winter or summer?
Summer and spring, I'd have to say, even though that wasn't your choice.
Yeah, I like spring probably too. Wine or beer?
Wine, yes.
Pancakes or waffles?
Pancakes.
Guilty pleasure TV show?
Don't watch it.
Really don't watch TV? Favorite snack?
Cheese, wine, and a cracker, and a grape. Can you have a combo?
Yes, that sounds delightful. Favorite cereal?
Oh, to eat?
Yeah, do you eat cereal?
I eat cereal.
Or what's your usual breakfast? That's a good question.
A big fat Dunkin' Donuts, 2 with my coffee every morning. Love it.
Wow. What would your husband say is his biggest pet peeve that you do?
I'm a pain in the ass. In every way. Every way. I don't let up.
And yet you're still married.
Well, he's got something wrong with him, obviously. No, really. He must just love this stuff.
Oh, that's hilarious. And your biggest pet peeve, not of him, just in general.
Oh, thank God he didn't go there, 'cause that's another whole separate interview. Disorganization of any kind drives me nuts. If you can't find something because it's not in its place, I go nuts. Yeah.
Okay. And what were you doing right before this interview?
Getting my makeup done to look good.
And what will you be doing right after this interview?
You know, I don't know. Could I ask her and then I could tell you?
She told me. You have another interview.
Oh, okay. So ask me again.
No, that's great.
Okay,
Let's
great.
leave that. That's great. All right. Well, again, I just loved this. So much knowledge. Thank you so much for fitting us in today. And I'm Kelsey Humphreys here with the Barbara Corcoran, and this has been The Pursuit.